I'm going there to pour out the batch of quart of silver that cooked, and I'm gonna make another batch, attach the batteries. I've got the batteries in my pocket.
Should the Biden administration take steps to curb speculation in financial markets or rein in, say, SPACs perhaps, or Robin Hood?
About that ring?
Yeah, they should.
You want to hold on to that ring.
SPACs are completely, should be a completely illegitimate.
You're going to get me off that?
They're just an excuse for people with reputation and marginal ethics to raise a lot of money, take 20% of it for themselves, for a quick dash around the country for 6 months. And a complete rip-off in the sense that the professional hedge funds then always liquidate before taking any real risk and take the premium that they can get the warrants, and leaving the part of the marketplace that they retain it, who put their money on. On aggregate, with a very bad return. Of course, they'll make some money in the early stages of the bubble. But if you look at the first 6 years, they have a handsome sub-average return for taking all the risk. Because they don't have enough legal requirements, enough constraints, enough checking. They're a thoroughly reprehensible instrument, in my opinion, and should be disallowed. They should, of course, reform the IPO. The IPO is the license to reward the developers of the world at the open. You could do better than that. Direct listing made a little easier would be the way to go. But SPACs are tough. You've become a big believer in green investing, Jeremy. I'd like to know more about the story behind QuantumScape, the battery maker you invested in, and which, somewhat ironically, went public via a SPAC merger. It's full of ironies. And I hated SPACs long before I found myself owning one. But it wasn't just owning one, it was owning slightly the biggest investment of my life. And one that's made you hundreds of millions of dollars, as I understand it. Well, a whole lot less now. The stock has come down from 130 to 54 in a month, which is, by the way, typical because of a bubble breaking. If you're looking for the very early warning signs of a bubble breaking, you find the stocks that have done the best in SPACs, and particularly SPACs, and Tesla, and Bitcoin. And you wait until they start to have these big daily drops, and then they recover, drop, and they recover. And that's the very early one. And the market in 2000, for example, didn't go together. They took out the
God says he's the one I lived with when I lived with Richard Hayden Jr. But he gave me a representative facsimile experience. He's pretty fucking good at knocking me down. He says he's doing this to cure me. I swear niceness cures me. Niceness, hugs, passionate sexual love.
So that is a typical way. Bubbles don't necessarily grow compact. But having sliced off the tech and the .com, then finally the 70%, like a giant iceberg, rolled over on that to 70% and went down in 2.5 years. You've been concerned and written about the state of economic inequality for years. Tell me, what do you think is the right way to correct it? I think that the nurturing of childhood and management to
When I was tested at Killian Senior High, junior or senior year for IQ, the woman called me and she said, well, I want you to know your IQ is 125. It's above average. You can be anything you want. You can be a doctor or a lawyer. Well, it's kind of a blow. Not the number itself, but the delivery. Anyway. The laboratory research program I was in was for gifted students. And they require an IQ of 130 above to participate. Though they didn't say that before I applied and all that. And they got me while I was firmly fixed at the microbiology lab at the Rosenstiel School of Medicine down in the Jackson Memorial Hospital complex when I learned that I had to take an IQ test. And she didn't tell me until after she told me my score, what the minimum score was to stay. And I'd been in there maybe 3 months when I got tested. And she gave me the results, and I guess she's the one that told me. The laboratory research program requires a minimum of 130 IQ. So I was just waiting to get canned. I assumed it would be Dr. Greer who'd can me. You know, so every day I'd go in wondering if this is the day I'm going to get canned. These are the kind of scenarios they set up to create prolonged stress. I've carried more prolonged stress than anybody in the universe, probably except Paul. Because not only did he have to do these horrible things to me to give an accurate facsimile experience, because he says these people were killing children. You know, he has to do it again to show me that it was him, and it's just so bad. Richard Henning Jr. is a real bummer. A real buzzkill. I unsubscribed to IMDb, and I've got the subscription again. Email I'm doing, checking email. Oh shit, I wanted some. Meant to make some Pop-Tarts.
I've heard you say American capitalism
There's a man being interested. I don't even know what channel I'm on. Bloomberg's front row. His name is Jeremy Grantham. Shit. That's like Grantham in Pelican Brief, the character played by Denzel Washington.
If you say as an individual,
Gray Grantham? Isn't his name Gray? Gray Grantham?
you're a sociopath. And we are not, as individuals, the outset. A lot of us do the odd altruistic act. And
It may be George Burns. The right side of his mouth.
hopefully like Biden come out of the woodwork and set a good example and lead.
Curves up a little when he talks.
And autocracy can be end. And a healthy democracy.
Jeremy, I want to thank you very much for taking this time to talk to me.
No, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
And he looks and sounds like he smokes cigars. I'm not sure. But his name is Jeremy Grantham. And it was first take at a Bloomberg or
Following
something.
content is provided under a Creative Commons license. Your support will help MIT OpenCourseWare continue to offer high-quality
Oh, this is like MIT presents stuff. So MIT must have had him as a guest.
or view additional materials from hundreds of MIT courses. Visit MIT.
I'm going to play market reaction to Biden's announcement about the capital gains increase.
Fellow Americans, did you know the Fed has printed more than $6 trillion this year alone? Fact. The dollar is losing value. And that's why now more than ever, I recommend you diversify with gold and silver. And the only
Let's get more on the markets now with Kathy Jones, Chief Fixed Income Strategist at Charles Schwab. So, Kathy, I'm sure you were watching the play-by-play here in the market as
Kathy Jones with Charles Schwab. Looks like Mary Elizabeth Master Antonio, but without makeup and stuff.
Tax on those making $1 million or more a year to a whopping 43.4%. We saw the response in the market was swift.
She was the star of Abyss, the female lead. Abyss, the movie, is about underwater UFOs. It is fantastic. I got so caught up with the main character, male lead, played by Ed Harris, when he was going through something weird, and he'd never done it before, and I was right there with him in my thoughts, and he got halfway through what he had to do to save lives, and I had to pause the movie. We lived in the mobile home park at that time, and I took Richard Henning Jr. outside with me, and we just sat on the steps so I could try to calm down. That's how involved I was in what Ed Harris's character was going through.
The numbers and then the likelihood of whether it actually passes, but it certainly could stimulate a bit of a sell-off here, and again something that tempers some of the enthusiasm and brings valuations back in line. But I'd say it's early days.
Mary Elizabeth Master Antonio played a cold hard ass. What was she? She was an engineer. She had designed and built the rig, the underwater oil drilling platform. Right? That's what it was. You were drilling, weren't you? Did you have to be? In the Abyss. And so she was a brainiac, and she was cold, and she was a real bitch. And then the next time I saw her was in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. And that movie just disappointed me. The thing before, movie of Kevin Costner's before that I had seen was Dances with Wolves. Now, there's a lot of stress in my voice just on TV right now as I was saying that. It's possible Dances with Wolves is gonna disappear just like Mel Gibson's Hamlet did, and just like the World Trade Center towers did. Just poof. It was beautiful, and it was beautifully done, and it was a spiritual upliftment, and it was about Native Americans, and he was Army. Yeah, you have infantry in the Army. Kevin Costner played Rob. Oh no, I'm sorry. Kevin Costner played Army, World War II. Excuse me. Army, Civil War, Confederate. Right? Wasn't he a Confederate? Whoever had the navy blue uniforms. I think he was a Confederate. But anyway, he got assigned to this isolated fort out in the middle of nowhere, and I don't know what state it was. But he started watching this wolf that would come closer to him every time, and I don't know if the wolf getting injured, the wolf got injured at one point in the movie, had to do with him happening upon an Indian tribe. Well, not a whole tribe, probably just, you know, whatever they call, maybe 100 or 200 people. I don't even know what kind of Indians they were. But he stumbled across them, and oh yeah, something like okay. He had helped them with something. Just met. So I'd have to see the movie again. I've seen it several times. But he was badly injured, and the Native Americans took him in. They found him, and they took him in, and they gave him their natural treatment, you know, to help his leg. I could be mistaken. I don't know. I'm not remembering this part very well. I'm a cheap date because my memory can be so unpredictably bad that I don't remember the endings of movies, which has the bonus of I can watch a good movie over and over again and still not remember how it ends. So I'm entertained every time. There were some movies I watched constantly. About 3 years after I had known Paul and I had to leave work because I was ill, I moved into the Roslyn, which is a local high-rise for this town. It's like 8 floors or something. And I had no income when I moved in, and you have to come up with $50 a month for rent. That's the minimum. And then if you get a job, you pay a sliding scale based on your income. You pay 30 or 33% of your income in rent. And when I first got there, I didn't have a job, I didn't have anything. I forgot what I was going to say. Oh. So that was... Yeah, I don't want to mention this movie first, because it's not relevant to it. When I lived with my son... Let's see. When I lived with my son, we had, for a time, all the channels, including all the pay channels. Or we bought the best pay channel package that included HBO, Showtime, and I think Cinemax. Richard Haney Jr. was a cable guy, and ever since he started working for Adelphia Cable in Miami, Florida, we've gotten free cable. And, I think it included the pay channels, the premium channels. He had one of the people who reported to him, who's a manager, arranged for him to get a wide open box. I don't think we got pay-per-view events, but I wouldn't have watched them, because they're usually $20 and more, and I'm not going to cheat on something up with that much money. But I had all the pay channels and all the porn channels and stuff. Anyway, I have a poor memory. I think it's a poor short-term memory. A lot of new agey kind of things, and I'm not condemning that. I don't think they're all evil. But a lot of new agey stuff that I was reading on the internet. Let's see. Probably since about the year 2000 was we're going to be transforming from 3 dimensions to 4 dimensions, and that's where they stopped, because apparently it was going to be quite a transition. They said you're going to have certain symptoms, like you're going to have poor short-term memory is one thing, and I don't remember all the others. But I thought some of it was compared to that, and then some of it had to do with the brain injuries I sustained. I'm being forgetful now, and they don't help. The evil ones pounce on me when I'm like this. When I'm saying something intelligent to you, I get it pretty hard. I titled the last video EQ, and what I mean by that is not IQ. I didn't have a high IQ, a high tested IQ. I was told they cheated and shit. But over the years I realized I have a high EQ, a high emotional quotient. It's emotional intelligence quotient, but emotional quotient. You have to keep yourself emotionally healthy. And you've got to do things you enjoy. You can't diet and deprive yourself of all the goodies that you want, that you crave, or that you salivate for. You know? How many of you haven't had real ice cream? You know, they have non-fat and low-fat ice cream. But I realized that having a healthy emotional outlook and life, emotionally healthy relationships, was more important than money. It was more important than clothing, you know, your type of clothing. It was more important than anything, and I used to say that to Rich. You know, you have to take care of your emotional health first. Emotional health comes first. And I think that's what Jesus meant about keeping your lamps lit. You've got to keep life in you. To keep life in you in this drudgery world, you know, where you end in death at age 75. Probably from cancer being treated with chemo, which is like 18 lifetimes worth of emotional dysfunction. But you've got to keep your lamps lit. You've got to do things you enjoy. So if you enjoy smoking, smoke. If you enjoy drinking alcohol, drink. If you like eating chocolate, eat chocolate. I mean, I stopped dieting when I was about 17. I had counted calories every day since I was 13. And I knew the calorie count on most foods. And I just didn't want to do it anymore. You know, so I just took a risk, stopped counting calories, and ate what I wanted. You know, ate when I was hungry and ate what I wanted. I didn't gain any weight. One of the things that keeps my lamp lit is sitting down. It hurts to stand up and it hurts to walk. As people with bad knees will tell you, it really hurts. There were 2 people in AA who had knee surgery. I don't know if it was replacement. I don't know if it was replacement. I think theirs were laser. So I don't think it was replacement. I could look it up, but I think replacement means I'll be having titanium as my left knee now if I get the surgery. Which is fine. You know, I was feeling the muscles in my broken shoulder, and he put quite a big rod in there attached to my new rotator cuff. The rotator cuff and the rod are titanium. Well, I didn't ask him, I just assumed. So I'm feeling my muscles because they're attached differently to my shoulder now than they were before. And it feels pretty weird. They're attached here instead of up here where they were when my rotator cuff was intact. So I was rubbing my muscle, you know, just trying to make my arm feel better. And I felt, wait a minute, that's not a muscle. How can I ever work that out? And I realized it's a titanium rod. It's right here, maybe a ½ an inch under the skin. Because I was thinking, well, how am I going to loosen that muscle? And then I realized it was the rod. But DMSO is good for making the muscle as if it has stretched some. But I need to do stretches. I'm very resistant to physical therapy. It doesn't matter what it's for, or who my physical therapist is. I'm just very resistant to the whole thing. So I don't really do the exercises they assign me. But God has had me using my right arm. And I've got a lot more use of it than I did before. And Dr. Fagan's physician's assistant, Cassandra, said I was making appropriate progress. I don't know, she didn't say great or anything, but I was at a good spot for the amount of time after surgery, she said. Last evening God said, you know what is going to work best on your arm. He said, feel it. Feel the direction. You should rub it yourself. And rub in the direction that feels the best. He said, I know these things just because the way that feels the best is the best way. So I've been rubbing my muscle up. But just putting a little bit of DMSO on it. DMSO delivers sulfur to the tissues. They always talk about how carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, and hydrogen, those are the organic atoms that combine to become organic substances. Those are the atoms that combine to become organic substances. What about sulfur? DMSO, we must be made of a lot of sulfur, or we have great sulfur needs. DMSO has some remarkable healing properties, and that's my understanding. It delivers sulfur to the tissues. It also gets into the bloodstream, I think, and it makes things cross the blood-brain barrier, which can be a good thing or a bad thing. I understood from the silver list that colloidal silver also crosses the blood-brain, whatever I call it, genotype. I noticed when I lived in Louisiana, when I first started making and taking colloidal silver, I started out pretty slow. A teaspoon of colloidal silver in the morning and a teaspoon in the evening. And I did have a die-off reaction where the colloidal silver was killing enough bacteria that the dead cells, the dead cell walls and all that, my system was having to process, and it made me feel pretty icky. On the silver list, they explain it's called the Herxheimer reaction, or the Herxheimer syndrome or something. A Herxheimer reaction. It's probably named after a person. That you have to, when you're first starting on colloidal silver, you have to start out in small amounts and test your body's bacteria and virus level, I guess. Because if you have a high bacteria / viral count in your body, colloidal silver is going to kill it, and you're going to get a die-off reaction and feel really pukey. So you have to start out slow. But also, after maybe a month of taking colloidal silver in small amounts, I increased it. I only took the 1 teaspoon a day, 2 teaspoons a day for about 3 weeks, and then I increased it some. I noticed that I was thinking faster. This part of my brain felt more stimulated. So I don't know, it's helped. There's also a substance, colloidal gold. I got near ordering it a couple of times, like a gallon jug for $30 or something. It's supposed to be very good for depression, but I've never actually ordered it, so there might be a reason. For all I know, they're using colloidal nickel painted gold or something. You can make your own colloidal gold, and I thought, someday I can afford like a gold coin, or 2 gold coins, and make it like colloidal silver. But either I looked it up or it was explained in the silver list. That's not the case. You need to have, I think it's 24 karat gold, and you need to do whatever electrical you need to do to create an arc between them. Like those electronic cigarette lighters, they create some of them create a crisscross arc between the 4 little metal sticky uppy things. So to make colloidal gold, you need to have 24 karat gold, and you have to do it electrically, so you're creating an arc. And I read that and I thought, shit, I'll never be able to figure that out. But if you had a reliable source for 24 karat gold, and you have yourself or a friend who knows enough about how to use batteries or whatever you use for colloidal gold to create an arc, then you can make your own colloidal gold and test to see if it's good for depression. I bet it's not harmful. I bet, it's colloidal form. This one, I couldn't understand. How can ingesting a metal be safe? And finally it was explained to me like colloids, they're like ionic. They're ionic. There's another word for it. They're ionic. They're suspended in the liquid in tiny little dots that you can't see. Tiny little particles suspended in liquid because the electricity between the 2 coins does that. Then it was explained to me that it's like an ionic mineral or a other word mineral, like in vegetables. Like that silver, mushrooms are high in silver. So if you crave mushrooms and you can't get enough mushrooms, your body could be, responding to a need for silver. It's just like minerals in vegetables. That's what colloidal silver is. It's in mushrooms, it's naturally occurs in mushrooms. So that made sense to me, because I'm like, I don't want to drink silver flakes. It's not you can't drink metal, you know? But it's in ionic form. So it's tiny little particles suspended in liquid, which happens to be distilled water. Tinctures are like herbs that the valuable juices of the roots or something is drawn out by alcohol. It's just regular, there's a word for it. It's like 80 proof vodka or something. I don't think there's such thing as 100 proof vodka. But there's a term for it. Alcoholics probably know it. It's just really strong vodka. I understand that that is what is used to make tinctures. So if I had like herbs hanging from the ceiling upside down so the roots are down in a cellar or a shed or something, when they had dried out, I guess you have to wait till your root dries out. Boy, would I love to have somebody's great-grandmother talk to about this. You put them in the highest proof alcohol you can buy, and the alcohol extracts the nutritional part of the herb. And herbs can be very medicinal and helpful. And I was reading this wonderful book. The woman, you call it wildcrafting. I wanted a wildcraft. There was a course in Northern California that you go and they take you through the woods. They teach you how to identify certain weeds that have medicinal or nutritional value, and you just root them out of the ground. I mean, they have to make sure where you're wildcrafting. Isn't that a beautiful word? Wildcrafting. That the soil is healthy and the plant is healthy, but weeds, there are a lot of weeds that have medicinal value. And I was reading this wonderful book, and I don't remember the author's name, but she used to forage in the woods and around her where she lived and grow amaranth, or get the amaranth, tiny little round seeds out of the flower. I think it's a flower. And she had such a lovely attitude about it, and, you know, it was just wonderful. Now, a lot of it was hard work. I could never spend that much time, you know, processing something, or just as much time as she spent, but it was such an enjoyable book to read. And then she did a sequel, like 10 years later or something, and she has 2 boys now. She had 2 boys when she did the sequel, and they were young. And her life has changed so much, she said, she looks back on those times of foraging in the woods and stuff and wonders how she ever had time to do all that. It was nice, it was funny. But I forget what it was called, maybe someday. I'm sure the Pentagon knows. It's in their computer databases. You know, along with my former input from an electronic device, where I'd see a blinking cursor in my mind's eye up here. And then it would type, and I don't know if I typed back answers or not, but I would communicate with something having to do with a computer in my head. I never mentioned it to anybody because I assumed it was true for everybody, that they had a blinking cursor in their mind's eye. It's more like I was Daryl, D-A-Y-R-L, the movie. Cool movie. D.A.R.Y.L. period. Now, Satan is here, and in the 17 and a half years that I've been doing this crap, told me, shit, now they took it. They told me that the directors, producers, cast, and crew made Daryl because of me. Because I was the Daryl, you know? It was a kid who wasn't even human in his brain. He was all electronic. Right? No brain matter. He was all electronic. They would download his sensory input and his verbal his verbalization, and he was like 10 years old or 12. And it would all get downloaded in the computer. But he was a very gentle little boy, and he grew very tender in his heart for the foster parents who took him in. The government was doing an experiment and had him set up as foster parents to download his reactions and all this shit. But he was a very gentle little boy, and he became attached. He was very factual. It was a lot like Data in Star Trek. He was very objective and very neutral about everything, but he also developed an affection and a need for the parents he had as a foster child. It was a sweet movie. But Satanists told me that was patterned after me, that all the people who participated in the movie were evil, and all this stuff. I know it's going to turn out that I have accidentally lied about a lot of people who probably are perfectly decent people who would be as appalled as I am that child torture goes on in our world. Or did. God's having me go through this process without giving me any significant real news about what's going on in the world. The Bible says, I will restore Israel and make her the boast of the earth. It may not be Israel. I'm wisdom, I'm the Holy Spirit, I'm the city of Zion, and I'm Israel. And the Pistis Sophia. It's a beautiful title. Pistis Sophia. It's just beautiful. But if you ever read the fucking thing, it's ascend, descend, ascend, descend, and this woman was complaining all day long. They mock me, you know, when am I gonna blah blah blah. And I read it before this crap started. Not word for word, not the whole thing. It's like pages and pages and pages and pages of ascend, descend, the mocking spirits and all that. It was the most depressing thing I've ever fucking read. Especially since I knew I was supposed to be that. It's like, well, when did that happen? Like, in the future, in your future, you moron. So this is it, you know? So, I am all these names. God is the Father, He's Yahweh, Y-A-H-W-E-H. My edition of the Bible, the Jerusalem Bible, that's the name for God. In some Bibles, He's probably called something else. So God is the Father, He is Yahweh, and to the best of my knowledge, He was Jesus, and He is Paul, and unless I'm mistaken, and I think I am now, when this journey first started for me in the spring of 2004, I had a vision. It was quite beautiful. It really was. It was beautiful and uplifting, but it wasn't some spectacular vision. I saw, like, from 2/3 up from the foot, so a third down from the knee, the calf, third down. No, I didn't see the actual flesh, except in the sandals. But it was an angled vision, and I saw off-white robes, off-white robe, like you kind of imagine Jesus and they wore during that time. Kind of like linen, and sandals, and the man was walking, and it was a brightly lit vision. Like, it's like as if it were you know, in the beating sun or in the sun. And I realized in my heart, that was Paul on the road to Damascus. I just had a vision of Paul on the road to Damascus. But I didn't know it was Paul. I mean, Apostle Paul on the road to Damascus. I realized it was the Apostle Paul on the road to Damascus. And Paul was my favorite New Testament author, aside from Jesus speaking and being quoted. But Paul was real kick-ass. He really was. He was like, we are the awful, O-F-F-A-L, of the world, the scum of the earth. He was very plain about it. And other things. Very bold statements. A lot of nerve, a lot of balls. And you know, when I was a squish bug in the first couple of years, boy did that ever help me. That bold, highly confident stuff. So I had the vision of Paul, the Apostle Paul, on the road to Damascus. And then later, the part that was opaque, that I couldn't see through, I saw Paul Geishen. That probably wasn't it. I mean, I don't even know if that's his real name. It's kind of a harsh, sharp name. It was Paul. And I thought, oh shit. That means Apostle Paul is Paul, was Jesus, and is Paul Geishen. But now I'm not so sure. The Apostle Paul may have been a separate person from Paul Geishen, who I know was Jesus. I struggle with the Trinity concept like you wouldn't believe. Even after I had started reading the Bible on my own and learning valuable things from it. And I didn't understand how you could have a Father, a Son, and a Holy Spirit who is female. Well, isn't the Father partnered with someone? I thought, does that mean God the Father is a homosexual or something? I don't know. Maybe it's a quad. Because the number 4 is very prominent for good on the good guy's side here in the astral plane. It's been my favorite number since 3rd grade in Sister Victorine's class. Maybe the Godhead is a fority instead of a trinity. It's a hexatrinity. It's a hexady. Now, God the Father could be the Apostle Paul. And I was given a misleading vision. To mislead the evil ones, of course. It's always important to mislead the evil ones, because boy are they persistent. So, pretty disgusting. Really. I think it would be cool if the Apostle Paul was a separate person. He could be God the Father. I have thought of that before. So I don't know who God the Mother is, unless Paul is my real father, and my mother, who I met when I was 3, is my real mother. Paul could be the father. Now, how would he be Paul Geishen's father, and Laura Landsberg's father, without Paul and Laura Landsberg being appropriate to be romantic, passionate lovers and, loves. Now, the Song of Songs does say that the bride, I'm the bride too, that the bride says, why aren't you my brother, nurtured at my mother's breast, so I could kiss you out of doors and nobody would notice it. Well, I didn't realize at the time. I think it was when I started being attacked by Satanists, verbally, instead of just flying black things over my house and stuff. Because I asked Paul to meet me at Lions for lunch or something. I wanted to tell him that the reason I left work was because I got sick, but that I was in love with him, and I asked him if he wanted to have an affair. And he said that he had other obligations. And then we walked out together. I wish he'd offered me a ride home, even though my legs didn't hurt as much then. But he didn't. I think he didn't want to be a married man seen with a woman in the middle of divorce or something. But I asked him when we got outside. He was leaning against the front wall of Lions Restaurant, which is now, what do you call it? Shit. I know this like the back of my hand. I've eaten there many times. Coliseum. That was where Lions was. And the people in this town must know that, because I think Lions was there for 40 years or more. But after Paul and I had our encounter, the evil ones, or the facsimile evil ones, moved in and either bought Lions from the owners or whatever, but they took it over and changed the booth where Paul and I were, and all the booths are gone. They have different booths now. That's because me and Paul met there. That's why the portion of the mall is torn down now. Because Paul and I worked together at Walden Books. He was my boss. And that's why they want to tear the lighthouse down in Lakeside Park and put a restaurant there. Because I went up there and carved Laura Loves Paul or LL plus PG or something. I don't know what I carved it with a pen by pressing really hard. But I've heard, only once though here, is that Paul did the same up there. So that's like, they can't wait to tear it down. But it's a historic landmark. The Goldsmith, a jeweler on Main and 4th-ish, 4th Street-ish. Between 3rd and 4th, I think. Or between, I don't know where it is. It's between 3rd and 5th. Okay? They actually make custom lighthouses for people to buy to have, as commemorative pieces. Or, important symbols to them. There's something else. He makes 3 custom things that are handmade. I saw it on their website, I think. I saw it somewhere. One of them has to do with sturgeon fishing. Sturgeon spearing, maybe? I don't know. It was not appealing to me. Whatever it was. But he makes the lighthouse in Lakeside Park. That's one of the custom pieces of jewelry you can make. And they're not cheap either. I don't remember the price. No, people in this town, that's a historic landmark. They can't tear that thing down. Anyway, that's why God's not having me give my donation to the county for the mobile meals. They ask for $3 or $3.50, you know, if you can afford it. But if you're 62 or older, you're not required to pay. And I get meals 5 days a week, all month. So that's 20 meals. So that's 20 meals at $3 each, is $60 a month. And before I had mobile meals, when I lived at 130 Forest Avenue, I was so grateful that, and I thought I had the income for it. I wanted to give the $60 a month donation, but I just couldn't. I mean, weird things were happening with my bank accounts, both of them, my checking accounts, etc., 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 etc. I know, they're taking it. They're hurting my head here. Whatever I've been talking about, you know, it's important and it indicates that I am the Holy Spirit. So, I came to that conclusion when I was 21 years old and picked up the Bible and opened Lamentations. I don't know how to pronounce it. Oh, how lonely she sits, the city once thronged with people, as if suddenly widowed. Oh, I know. I would like God the Father to be a separate person from Paul, because I love Paul tenderly with all my heart. And I was under what I think is the misimpression that he had to know every detail of my torture, or watch it when I was little while it was happening, you know, from heaven or the astral plane or whatever. And that was a terrible burden for me. I didn't want him to know everything. I know it hurts more to injure someone you love than it does yourself. If they were injuring you, to injure someone you love as much as I love God, while I have to watch, as a child, being injured as a child, I'd lose my marbles. So, I want there to be a God the Father, a separate person, and angels who had to watch. Not that I wish them that, but they had to share the burden of what I was going through as a child. And somebody had to know what it was to know the programming that was used to unprogram me. So, God says, physician, heal thyself, and he's saying that as a compliment. He means that I did everything necessary to have the maximum amount of health in a horrible, horrible situation. Nightlife, not every night, was a fucking nightmare. Daytime was chilly and no hugs and stuff. Very dysfunctional family. But I was healthy, physically and emotionally, even though Richard Haney Jr. had been my partner for how many years? Somehow I survived it. when I met Paul. And I knew what was left to heal me had nothing to do with me. It had to do with the people and what they had done to me as a child. I wrote a poem, A Glimpse of Me. I put the first stanza on my website To Me page. I never got around to adding all the poetry. But it closes with something like, I like the me buried underneath other people's trash, and I shall keep digging until the me I once knew emerges fully. Then I'll go on my way again. The world will be big and good and mine again. I will have learned many things and I will be free. So this is other people's trash. This is how God gets it out of me or off of me, or this is the washing, which feels like sitting in feces if you want to know the truth. One of the things my guide, who is Paul, I think, Paul Geishen, could have been God the Father. It feels good to have parents. It's too complicated to explain. Oh, a quad. What's hexa? Hexa is 6, sorry. It's a quadity. A quadity. It's not a trinity, it's a quadity. Quadity, 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 quadity. This one's getting long. Anyway, God the Father could be a separate person. Maybe they both had to go on the road to Damascus and get hit by a great light in order to get through what they'd had to get me through. That's possible. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording and upload this.